You buried Serpent! I survived it.
And now you're digging it back up.
The Nevada sun beat down like a forge, turning the dusty airbase into a shimmering haze. Colonel Evelyn Harper knelt in the sparse shade of a maintenance hangar, her hands steady despite the sweat beading on her weathered brow. At 52, she'd seen enough desert to last a lifetime. But this one Nellis Air Force Base, just outside Las Vegas, felt like it was trying to cook her alive. Her M16 rifle lay disassembled across a crate, its bolt frozen mid-cycle, caked with sand from a training op gone sideways in the Mojave. Around her, the base hummed with life. Jets roaring overhead, mechanics cursing over engine parts, and young recruits laughing too loud to mask their nerves. Evelyn didn't join the chatter. Her focus was on the rifle, her fingers prying at the grit with a precision born from decades of discipline. The weapon had jammed during a live-fire exercise 2 days ago, leaving her squad exposed for a heart-stopping moment. She'd switched to her sidearm, kept her cool, and got her team out. But the memory of that failure gnawed at her. She muttered to herself, "You had one job," as she scrubbed the bolt with a wire brush. Most soldiers would have handed the rifle to the armory techs. Not Evelyn. Her old unit task force, Serpent, had drilled one rule into her: never let your weapon leave your hands. Not when you'd seen what she'd seen. Boots crunched on gravel behind her. Heavy, deliberate steps. Someone with authority. She didn't look up, just kept working, popping the lower receiver free. A shadow fell over her. "Focus, Colonel," a voice said, deep and measured. She glanced up to see General Thomas Reddick, his silver hair cropped tight, his uniform crisp despite the heat. His sleeves were rolled up, no body armor, just the quiet confidence of a man who didn't need it. His name tag gleamed, and the 3 stars on his collar confirmed his rank. Evelyn stood, rifle in hand, and saluted. "Sir." "At ease," Reddick said, his eyes flicking from her face to the rifle, then to the patch on her vest. It was subtle, black and gold stitching faded from years of wear. A coiled snake wrapped around a dagger, its eyes sharp and unyielding. His posture stiffened, just a fraction, but enough for Evelyn to notice. His gaze locked on the patch like he'd seen a ghost. "You served with Serpent," he said, not a question but a statement, heavy with implication. Evelyn's fingers tightened around the rifle barrel. It wasn't loaded. She never kept a round chambered on base, but her instincts screamed caution. "I did, sir," she said, her voice steady, practiced. Reddick stepped closer, his eyes narrowing. "Evelyn Harper, listed Kia, Afghanistan, 2019. Care to explain?" She didn't answer immediately. The base's noise faded into the background radio's crackling, Humvees idling, a distant shout. Here, in this moment, the air was thick with history. "Funny thing about being dead," she said finally. "Sometimes you come back." Reddick's jaw tightened. That patch shouldn't exist. Serpent was decommissioned, erased. Evelyn returned to her rifle, brushing sand from the bolt. Some things don't stay buried. He stared at her, the weight of his rank pressing against her defiance. "I want you in my office, 1,700 hours. Bring your file. The real one." "Yes, sir," she said, her eyes never leaving the rifle. As Reddick walked away, Evelyn's fingers brushed the patch. For the first time in years, she felt the past clawing its way to the surface. Evelyn sat alone in the mess hall, her tray of lukewarm chili untouched. The air conditioner rattled, barely cooling the room. Most of the soldiers had cleared out, leaving only a few stragglers playing poker at the far end. Her eyes kept drifting to the Serpent patch, sewn just above her heart. It wasn't just fabric, it was a vow, a scar, a secret she'd carried since Kabul. General Reddick had seen it, and not with the casual curiosity of someone who'd read a briefing. No, he'd looked at it like he knew what it cost. Like he'd helped bury it. She hadn't meant for him to notice. She only wore the patch on base, during downtime, away from prying eyes. Her squad didn't know her past, not even Lieutenant Carter, who dragged her to cover during a firefight in Iraq last year. They thought she was just a tough old colonel, a lifer who'd seen too much sand. That was the point. Until now. At 1,658 hours, Evelyn approached Reddick's office, a squat building surrounded by MPs. The guards gave her a quick nod and waved her in. Inside, the air was cool, the hum of an AC unit cutting through the silence. Reddick stood behind a desk cluttered with maps and a tablet. He didn't look up. "You're early, Colonel. You asked for my file, sir." She handed him a thin folder, the only record she was allowed to keep. Reddick waved her to a chair. She sat, her posture rigid. He opened the folder, his face unreadable. "You should be dead," he said plainly. "Was, briefly," she replied. "Got better." Reddick leaned forward, his voice low. "I signed off on Serpent's funding 6 years ago. Never met the team. You were called non-recoverable assets. No names, no memorials. Just tools. That's how they kept us loyal," Evelyn said, her tone flat. "No funerals, no questions." He flipped through the folder, pausing at a grainy photo from Kabul, 2019. Evelyn, face smeared with ash, circled in red. "This was taken 2 days before the ambush. You were already a target." "By who?" she asked, leaning forward. "Contractors. Orion Dynamics. Off-books, privatized. Your mission was to retrieve intel, but the real order was to walk into a trap. You were the evidence they wanted gone." Evelyn's jaw clenched, rage simmering beneath her calm. "They burned us." Reddick nodded. "3 survivors, you said?" "Myself, Torres, and Malik. We split. No contact since. Swore to stay buried." "You broke that vow," he said, pointing to the patch. "Didn't mean to," she replied. "I wear it to remember, not to forget." Reddick leaned back, his eyes searching hers. "Why stay in? Why not vanish?" "Because I'm a soldier," she said, her voice steel. "Serpent didn't die in that ambush. We were murdered, and murder demands answers." He was silent for a long moment, then stood. "You'll have visitors soon. Intel officers, maybe JSOC. They'll offer promotions, reassignments. If you refuse, they'll call you unstable, fabricate a psych eval, make you disappear." "Why warn me?" she asked. Reddick's eyes flickered with something like guilt. "Because I didn't bury Serpent. I just held the shovel." That night, Evelyn sat alone in the base's watchtower, staring out at the Mojave's endless black. The memories of Kabul flooded back, sharp and unrelenting. In 2019, Serpent had been sent on a routine recon mission, map a weapons depot in the city's outskirts. The intel was clean abandoned warehouses, no hostiles. Line number 1. Line number 2 was that they had support. No air cover, no quick reaction force. Just 7 operatives. Evelyn, Torres, Malik, Reyes, Carter, Lane, and Captain Daniels, a leader who commanded respect without raising his voice. They'd rolled in under cover of night, moving through crumbling factories that reeked of diesel and betrayal. The ambush came fast, a flashbang from their own lines. Carter went down first, shrapnel tearing through his chest. Reyes screamed for backup that never came. Malik fired into the dark, shouting, "Those are our drones." Daniels ordered a retreat, but the drones American, armed with Hellfire missiles, ripped through Lane like paper. Evelyn dragged Torres into a shattered building, her hands slick with blood. "They knew we'd be here," Torres gasped. By dawn, only 3 were alive. They hid in sewers for days, scavenging, moving, surviving. When the radio finally crackled, it wasn't rescue. It was a kill code, Sierra Black Delta 4. They were no longer assets. They were liabilities. Evelyn smashed the radio, burned her tags, and forged new identities using dead soldiers' IDs. Torres and Malik vanished. Serpent was erased. Back at Nellis, Evelyn's hands gripped the watchtower railing. The desert stretched out, vast and silent, but the ghosts of Serpent screamed. She still saw Carter's lifeless eyes, Lane's body torn apart, Daniels standing tall as he drew fire to save them. The patch on her vest was a reminder, a promise to never forget. A knock came at the watchtower door. "Harper." It was Lieutenant Carterno, relation to her fallen teammate. "You okay?" "Fine," she said, forcing calm. "Just thinking. You missed Chow again." "Add it to my tab," she said. He chuckled and left. Evelyn pulled the patch from her vest, staring at the snake and dagger. It was time to dig. The next day, 2 men in pristine uniforms sat across from Evelyn in a briefing room. No name tags, no ranks. One held a tablet, the other watched her like a predator. "Let's keep this simple," Tablet said, his voice smooth but cold. "You served with Serpent," declared Kia in Kabul. "Yet here you are, wearing a patch that doesn't exist." Evelyn leaned back, arms crossed. I earned it. Never got a memo saying it was revoked. Tablet's smile didn't reach his eyes. Your reappearance is problematic. We need details on your final mission. Like how we were sent into a kill zone, she shot back. How our own drones fired on us. How Orion dynamics set us up to die. The second man spoke, his voice like gravel. Where are the others? Don't know, she said. Wouldn't tell you if I did. Be smart, Colonel, he warned. I was smart, she said. That's why I'm still here. Tablet stood. Expect a psych eval by week's end. You may be reassigned. Somewhere quiet. Evelyn smirked. Good luck with that. An hour later, she sat behind the barracks, cleaning her rifle. She'd said too much, or maybe just enough. Either way, she was on their radar. She pulled a battered hard drive from her locker, encrypted, old, but intact. It held Serpent's final logs, audio, drone telemetry, and a video from Captain Daniels, recorded before the ambush. She played it now, his bloodied face filling the screen. If you're watching this, we're gone. This wasn't enemy fire. It was a hit. Orion dynamics. They wanted us erased. Tell the truth. Don't let them win. Evelyn's throat tightened. She'd kept the drive hidden for years. Now it was time to use it. Late that night, she entered Reddick's office unannounced. He was hunched over reports, a lantern casting shadows across his face. He froze when he saw the hard drive in her hand. You're not supposed to have that, he said. Wasn't supposed to survive Kabul either, she replied, placing it on the desk. Everything's in there. The drones, the orders, Orion's fingerprints. They didn't just kill us. They erased us. Reddick watched the footage. Daniel's team moving through Kabul, the flashbang, the drones, the betrayal. When it ended, he leaned back, his face grim. You've had this for years? It's why I'm still alive, she said. Insurance. The others. Torres is off-grid. Malik's probably in hiding. We swore to stay dead. I broke that promise. Reddick picked up the drive, turning it over. This will make enemies. I've had enemies for years, she said. What I need is an ally. He met her gaze. You've got one. Reddick moved fast. He copied the drive 3 times, one to a secure cloud in Iceland, one mailed to a retired general in Montana, one slipped to a staffer on the House Armed Services Committee. Data, he knew, was like wildfire. Once it spread, it couldn't be contained. But the machine was already moving. MPs shadowed Evelyn's barracks. Her orders were canceled, her access restricted. Isolation tactics. She'd seen it before. But she wasn't scared, she was angry. In her locker, she found a notebook with old serpent call signs and safe houses. She circled one, Malik, Raven 1, Arizona border. It was time to fight back. In Washington, a junior aide to Representative Clara Monroe, a former Army captain from Texas, stumbled on the data packet. She watched Daniel's final message in her Capitol Hill office, her hands shaking. How deep does this go? She asked her staffer. Deep enough to scare everyone, he replied. Monroe didn't flinch. She demanded audits, subpoenaed Orion Dynamics contracts, and found traces of Serpent in redacted budgets. The threats came quickly: silent calls, a car outside her home, a leaked story claiming she was unstable. She pushed harder. Back at Nellis, Evelyn found an ally in Captain Sarah Klein, a logistics officer who'd trained with Serpent years ago. I knew Daniels, Klein whispered over coffee. The cover-up never sat right. They didn't have a reason, Evelyn said. Just power. Klein slipped her a burner phone. For when you need to run. I'm not running, Evelyn said. I'm fighting. In a Pentagon basement, a panel of unnamed officials, brass, contractors, shadows met in a secure room. Diane Voss, an Orion Dynamics exec, slammed a printout of Daniel's video on the table. This is a wipe, he'd said. Orion ordered it. The room went silent. Colonel James Teller, a black-budget overseer, leaned forward. If Harper won't shut up, we shut her down. And Monroe? Voss asked. Discredit her. Delay the hearings. If that fails, Teller let the silence speak. Evelyn stood before a closed congressional hearing, her uniform crisp, the serpent patch bold on her vest. Cameras were banned, but the room buzzed with tension. Representative Monroe nodded from the panel. Proceed, Colonel. Evelyn told them everything. Kabul, the drones, Orion's betrayal, the kill code. She played the full video, Daniel's voice echoing. They didn't want us to find the depot. They wanted us gone. She handed over financial records, decrypted orders, and biometric scans proving her identity. When she finished, the silence was deafening. Outside, veterans gathered, some wearing faded patches SELs, green berets, Serpent. A retired colonel held a sign, Serpent Lives. The truth was out, leaking through cracks in the system. Petitions spread, protests grew, and CNN aired a clip of Daniel's video. The public learned of Serpent, a unit erased for knowing too much. Monroe's bill, the Classified Operatives Protection Act, passed narrowly after months of pressure. It gave shadow soldiers a voice, a shield. Evelyn refused interviews but agreed to train veterans in New Mexico, teaching them to carry their stories forward. She called it the Coil, a nod to Serpent's enduring bite. On the Kabul ambush anniversary, Evelyn stood in a desert canyon, the sunset painting the sky red. 12 survivors, veterans, analysts, operatives gathered around a fire, each sewing a serpent patch onto their vests. It wasn't a unit anymore. It was a promise. In the National Archives, a display honored Serpent, Daniel's final message, a replica patch, and Evelyn's quote from the hearing. You didn't bury a team. You buried a truth. And truth always rises. Diane Voss resigned, her name tied to Orion's contracts. Audits exposed millions in off-books funds. The president declassified the Kabul files, and Serpent's story became a rallying cry for justice. Evelyn stood alone that night, the patch in her hand. She'd won, not with guns, but with truth. The machine had underestimated her, and it paid the price.